Are you looking for a book that can give you some practical advice for self-care for autistic adults? Then I want to tell you about Self-Care for Autistic Adults by Nurture. Hey, Define Yourselfers, I am the Confident Autistic from theconfidentautistic.com. If this is the first time you're checking out one of my videos, welcome. I appreciate you watching my videos. I'm an autistic adult, late diagnosed. I am a multi-certified life coach who is on a mission to empower you to embrace autism confidently. Now, if my mission resonates with you, please show your support by liking, sharing, and commenting on this video. But the best way to show your support is by subscribing to this channel. When you do, don't forget to ring the bell to be notified of new videos and when I go live for our weekly Q&A live stream. Before we get into the review of the book, I do want to share a disclaimer with you. I was given an advanced copy of this book in exchange for an honest review. I did not receive any financial compensation for this review, nor did the author publisher receive an advanced copy of this review before the review was published. Now, the full title of this book is Self-Care for Autistic Adults, Unmask, Embrace Your Autism Diagnosis, and Thrive as Your Neurodivergent Self. Self-Care for Autistic Adults offers a transformative approach to self-care, specifically tailored for autistic adults, addressing the unique sensory, emotional, and social challenges we autistics face. Unlike generic self-help books, Self-Care for Autistic Adults provides practical strategies to manage sensory overload, build adaptive routines, enhance emotional regulation, and navigate social and workplace dynamics with confidence. This book focuses on celebrating strengths and embracing neurodiversity. The book equips readers like you and me with tools for self-awareness, advocacy, and personal growth through interactive exercises and actionable advice. It empowers individuals to create fulfilling routines and embrace our unique journeys, fostering self-acceptance and well-being. And all this stuff's very important. I mean, I am a certified life coach, particularly in the area of building self-confidence. And everything that I just read that this book is about, you need as an autistic adult, whether you suspect you're on the spectrum, self-identify as autistic, or have received a late diagnosis of autism. All of this stuff and more is important for you to embrace this new world you're entering or you found yourself in, the world of autism, which, let's be honest, you've been in it all your life. Because you did not develop autism, you were born with it. You just did not know it. Now you know you're in this world, and it can be a little bit frightening and a change in your self-perspective. And this book is a good starting point to help you with that. Now, what do I like about this book? This book is laid out in a very logical way. In fact, as you work through the book, it takes you from point A to point B. Very, what's the word I'm looking for? Nice transitions. It's logical. It's not skipping around. It's laid out in a way that you could just read this from cover to cover, and it's going to make sense to you. This book, like I said, this book is laid out in a very logical way, and it starts out with a chapter on physical and sensory self-care. Now, this was a good starting point, and many of us on the spectrum struggle with sensory issues. Some of us experience sensory overload, while others may experience sensory seeking, and some of us experience both. Sometimes we're sensory seeking, sometimes we're sensory overload. Now, the following chapter covers emotional and mental self-care. And this chapter helps us understand what emotional dysregulation is. And this chapter provides us with both an explanation of mindfulness, what mindfulness practices are, along with some examples that we can try on our own. Mindfulness is very important. It helps us It can, there's many things it can do. One of them that pops to the top of my mind right now, it can help us not only with self-care, but to help us self-regulate when we're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or stressed, which we'll get to those two topics a little bit later in this book review. Now, a very important part of this chapter that I'm talking about right now, chapter 2, the one that covers emotional and mental self-care, a very important part of this chapter for me was the section that covers techniques for managing anxiety and stress. See, I told you we'll be talking about that in a moment, didn't I? I keep my word. Like most autistic adults, anxiety and stress are a significant part of my daily life. In fact, I don't think you could tell on the video because I wanted to work in radio, so I have this on-air persona. But the truth is, I'm extremely anxious right now. And in fact, I've been a little bit hyperventilating and just really anxious even before I hit record on this video. So that was a very, very important part of the book for me. This chapter also gives you some strategies to navigate shutdowns and meltdowns. And both meltdowns and shutdowns are not uncommon in the autistic adult community. Now, the third chapter covers cognitive and routine based self care. So, if you suspect you are autistic, self identify as autistic, or have received a late diagnosis of autism, you likely know how important routines are to stay self regulated. In fact, I know part of the anxiety I'm going through right now because I do not have a good routine. And in this chapter, gave you some practical advice on it. I'm trying to implement them. And I'm not saying the book's bad, okay? It's just you don't read something and then, oh, wow, the next day everything's fine. It takes a while. It's a process. So in this chapter 3, uh, the book helps you create a flexible routine, discusses time management tools to help you stick to a routine, along with cognitive exercises that can help boost your focus and clarity. These are things I know I struggle with, and a lot of people struggle with who are on the spectrum. I could do a whole video on routines and how they affect you. I could even probably do a webinar or workshop on it at some point. So I'm not going to go deep into it here. But if you're in the spectrum, you do know, and that you haven't figured it out yet, you will realize that a routine is going to really help you a lot. But creating a routine and sticking to a routine is difficult. And even if you have a routine, no matter how well you plan for it, something's going to interrupt it. That's why we need flexible routines. That's why that was talked about in this chapter. Now, another important chapter for autistic adults is chapter 4, where the topic of social self-care is covered. This chapter, among other things, shares some strategies that can help us build meaningful relationships both in real life and online. One of the things I see most common in the autism groups I'm in online is people experiencing, and I do this too, loneliness and isolation because social interaction is very difficult for many of us. We don't get it. We don't get the social cues. All of that stuff is overwhelming. I know it is for me. I don't have a lot of friends. I don't interact with a lot of people, and I'll admit it's by my choice. But I do it because interacting with people is so exhausting to me, so overwhelming to understand all the nuances of a friend. And in my case, I've talked about this in other videos. I do engage in fawning, and fawning is, people pleasing. And that even makes it harder because I'm trying to understand the person, the friendship, and I'm trying to be what they would like me to be. So I don't lose that friendship because friendships are hard to develop and maintain as autistic adults. So chapter 4 really is a great chapter on this. Uh, in the topic of social self-care. I lost my thought for a moment. So it does share strategies, like I mentioned, and can help us build meaningful relationships both in real life and online. And it's a really good chapter. I've not really implemented a lot from that chapter because I'll be on. One, I'm really anxious, and two, I got a lot of other things going on in my life right now. And three, Friendships have been so hard. It's just, I'm actually a little bit more comfortable by myself than around other people, but I do yearn for friendships. But I'm getting a little bit off topic here, and so let's get back to the book review. The 7 chapters in the book. We're up to chapter 5 now. Chapter 5 covers environmental and sensory self-care. Now, when you think of this, don't think of the environment like, climate change, global warming, the great outdoors. When we're talking about environmental, and some of it's outdoors, but when we're talking about the environment that we're around and the sensory, um, how our senses relate to it. And so in this chapter, there's practical advice and strategies that can help us create a sensory friendly environment. Because one of the things that does cause anxiety, I'll be honest, my wife knows about this. We talked about this. We have a plan. I cannot live in clutter. I cannot thrive in clutter. And I've been with my wife. We've been married over 20, at the time of this taping, 21 and a half years. And we've been together for 25 because, dated first. And I found something out about her the other night I did not know. She cannot function in organization, and I cannot function in clutter. We realize we're the odd couple of marriages. So one of the things I'm working on, we're going to redo my office because there's a lot of clutter in here because she puts a lot of stuff in here. We have agreed we're going to make this room my sensory friendly room. Again, I know I'm getting off topic, but this book is going to help me and is helping me plan out a sensory friendly environment for me. In fact, I may even do a series on that on my YouTube channel. So be looking for that on Fridays, basically when I do my autistic journey. So be watching for that there. Now let's move on to the rest of this book review. And we now into chapter 6, which dives into the topic of self-advocacy and professional self-care. Now, in this chapter, we are provided with information about understanding our rights. And these rights are mainly based on the rights we have as persons with disabilities in the United States, according to the ADA. That's the Americans with Disabilities Act that was put into law in 1990. Now, after we understand our rights, this chapter will help us learn how to communicate our needs and advocate for ourselves in all places, family, friends, whatever. And while we're navigating the office politics and the workplace culture. And those are two areas that many people on the spectrum struggle with getting accommodations at. So this is a really important chapter, especially if you're one of the lucky, and I say lucky because the unemployment rate among autistic adults is very dismal, is unacceptable in my opinion. And this chapter is going to be very helpful if you are one of the lucky ones to be employed, how you can advocate for yourself, get your needs met, because it's discouraging when we don't keep a job for more than 6 months to a year and we keep job hunting. It doesn't look good on a resume, but most importantly, it damages our self-confidence and our self-esteem. So this chapter really does have that potential and gives us the tools for us to advocate for ourselves, to communicate our needs so we can have a better experience at work, be a more productive employee for the company, and be able to say, I worked here for more than a year, which for many of us, I don't mean this disrespectfully, is a milestone, is a amazing accomplishment we all dream of doing. Now, the final chapter of this book discusses embracing neurodiversity and our strengths, which leaves the reader full of autism pride. When you read through the whole book, don't skip through it. You should read through it from cover to cover, then hold on to it and use it for reference. But when you read to it from point A to point B, from chapter 1 to chapter 7, and you do the activities and exercises in there, this book is going to leave you, or has a potential of leaving you, full of autism pride. And why do I say it has potential? Because I know that some people, the author, probably like me to say it will leave you autism pride. It has a potential because it depends on how much you really get out of the book. Not every book's going to communicate and connect with everyone. This book, I think, will connect with most, if not everyone. But if you're just kind of haphazardly reading it and, having you get distracted by outside noises while you're reading it and you're not really focused, you're not going to get as much out of it as if you read it straight through, distraction free. And that's why I say it has the potential. The more you put into something, the more you'll get out of it. So if you really dive into this book and put everything into reading it, undistracted, really focused, not just a chapter today, 4 months later, a chapter, you read it, over maybe a month, I did this in about a week, and you will leave with autism pride and feeling better about who you are as an autistic adult. Now, this book also includes, and I kind of referenced this a little bit earlier, exercises to help you engage in self-care for yourself as an autistic adult. So it gives you some exercises, like I mentioned, and gives you some reflection points. That's why you don't want to power through this book. You want to read it, embrace it, engage with it, and do it in a quiet, distraction-free area in a time where you're not going to be interrupted by other things, including your own thoughts. I got to say, this book does deliver on the promise of empowering you to unmask and embrace your autism with powerful self-care, even if past efforts have left you feeling misunderstood or overwhelmed. And like I said, I know I'm repeating myself. I'm beating a dead horse. That's what my dad always said, or my mom would always say when they were having arguments and they kept going over the same thing over and over again. But you got to really read the book cover to cover and really take it seriously and focus in on it, and it will work for you. It will give you a lot of resources. Will it fix every problem you have in your life? No. Okay, it won't. No book does. But when you start reading books on autism, and you read several of them from different authors, different perspectives on similar topics like self-care, eventually it's all going to make sense, and you're going to pick a little piece of here and there. So this is really worth the money. This book is. As a multi-certified confidence life coach, I recommend this book for anyone on the spectrum, especially for any adult who suspects they are autistic, self-identifies as autistic, or has received a late diagnosis of autism and is looking for a way to take care of themselves through engaging in self-care. Male or female, doesn't matter. I believe this book has something for you. Now, I like this book so much that, like I mentioned at the beginning in the disclaimer, I was given a free copy to read, to proofread. But I like this book so much, well, not proofread, to review, my apologies. I like this book so much that I'm adding it to my Kindle library. I'm actually going to be purchasing a copy of it, and I will use it as a reference book as I help other autistic adults discover, develop, and grow their self-confidence. Self-Care for Autistic Adults is available in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle on Amazon. And when you use the Amazon link in this video description to purchase Self-Care for Autistic Adults, Unmask, Embrace Your Autism Diagnosis, and Thrive as Your Neurodivergent Self, as an Amazon associate, I may earn a commission from your purchase. And your use of the link helps support my mission to empower you and other autistic adults to embrace autism confidently. Now it's your turn. Have you read the book? What did you think of the book? Have you not purchased the book and you have a question about the book? Share them in the comments. I will try my best to respond to as many as possible, but rest assured I do read each and every one of them. So until next time, this is The Confident Autistic. My real life name is Chris Mitchell, reminding you that now is the day for you to embrace autism confidently. Join me live Thursday nights for The Confident Autistic Live, where I answer your questions, we discuss this week's videos, offer support, and more. The fun starts Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time in the US of A. Be sure to click the bell when you subscribe to the channel to be notified when the party begins.